Hello everyone, welcome to Java Tutorials. My name is Kishore. In this video, we will discuss about encapsulation. Encapsulation is a mechanism that bundles the data and methods in a single unit called class. In encapsulation, you will hide the data so that other classes can't access the data directly. However, the only way they must able to access the data is through the methods which operates on these data. These methods can read the data or update the data. Those methods are called as setters and getters. What setters do is setters will set the value or update the data, and getters will read the value. So what is the benefit you get from this encapsulation or data hiding is you will have more control over the data as nobody will have direct access, and you can avoid any invalid values given to the data. And also you can update the data only if there is a setter method. If there is no setter method, then the other classes cannot modify the data at all. And one more thing, what you can do is you can also modify the data only if certain condition is met. Such kind of criteria also you can keep it inside the setters. To understand encapsulation, let me take an example. Say we have some applications like a banking application or social media application or some stockbroker application where user actually registers in those applications. When user uses these application, there will be an user object with properties of users like ID, name, phone number, and a few other properties will be there. And these applications apply an encapsulation concept so that ID, name, and phone number will be completely hidden from other classes. And how they will hide is they will make all these variables private so that other classes cannot access these data directly. Then they provide methods so that the methods would operate on these data. Like they can provide getters for all the properties like ID, name, and phone number so that the user can see ID, name, and phone number while using the application. However, they can provide setters only for few properties, like only for name and phone number setters can be provided, and there won't be setters for ID. Then what happens is the user cannot update the ID. First of all, the code doesn't have a direct access to the ID, and there is no setter method for ID means the application cannot modify the ID at all. Let us take another example of purchasing books. Say we have a book object with some properties like book ID, author name, title, price, then quantity, and is available. The application can make all these variables private so that no one should be able to access the data directly to avoid any invalid values. And they can provide getters for all the properties. However, they can limit the setters only to price and quantity. And the setter method of quantity should able to update is available value to either true or false so that based on the quantity is available will be true or false. If it is 0, then is available should be false. If it is greater than 0, then is available should be true. Here we are not having setter methods available, but who is modifying the is available? Is available is modifying by the setter method of quantity. So this is what the criteria you can have whenever you want to update the data. Similarly, you can have an object which will have only getters but no setters. Take an example of transaction, which probably you do while transferring some amount to someone's account. There, a transaction object will be created. And when you see the transaction details, you might see transaction ID, then the date, amount, then description. And once this transaction object initializes all these properties, the user who is using the application should not able to edit any of the details. In that case, they make all these data private so that there won't be any direct access, and they provide getters for all these properties but no setters for these properties. So these are the benefits you get by making the data private and restricting the other classes from direct access. But if you don't hide, then you will not have control over these data, correct? Because anyone can access these and they can give value. Some of the properties should not be updated, means even those properties also can be updated if the data are not private. Hence, encapsulation is one of the important principles in OOPS language, which you need to apply in the application. To understand that, what we will do, we will try to create one user class and create ID, name, and phone number with private. Then we will create getters for ID, name, and phone number, but setters only for name and phone number. Let us try to create the user object in the main and see what happens if I try to modify ID directly. So let me create a class here called user, and what I will do is I will create three variables: ID, then name, and phone number. I will create a constructor to initialize ID, name, and phone number. Let me write this dot ID equals to ID, this dot name equals to name, then this dot phone equals to phone. Firstly, I will try to create the user object and access these properties, and we'll see what happens. If I create an object of user, I need to pass three parameters. Let me pass some ID, then name, and phone number. Suppose I try to print the ID by directly accessing, you can observe there is an error. The error is because ID is not visible outside the class. Even name and phone number also, if you try to access, it is going to give error because name and phone numbers are also private. So how do I access? You should have methods like setters or getters so that you can access outside the class through those setters and getters. Let us create setters and getters. What we will do is we will create getters for all the three properties first, and the syntax for getters is like this: public, then the type, get property, and return property. This type should be the data type of the property. If it is ID, you should use get ID and return type should be int. If it is name, you should use get name and return type should be string. Similarly, for phone number, it should be long return type. Let us write getter for ID, get ID, and returns ID. And notice I am using camel case so that it will have a better readability. And you should always follow camel case whenever there are multiple words. That is the naming convention in Java. Let me create getters for name. Get name should return name. When you invoke the get name, you get the name of the user object. And lastly, we will create get phone that returns phone. So when you invoke the get phone number from the user object, you get the phone number of that user object. Let's create setters, but I will be creating setters only for name and phone number. So what is the syntax for setters? This is the syntax. You should use public keyword, then void return type, then set property. You should pass a parameter. The parameter is used to update the value. So some variable and this dot property equals to that variable. So that whatever the value passed to the set property, that value is going to update the property. Let me create setter method for name and phone number. Public void set name, and I am updating the name, so I will pass string as a parameter and write this dot name equals to name, so that when a user object invokes the set name and passes the name, user object name property will be updated. Similarly, I will create set phone number by passing phone and update the phone number property using that parameter. Now we should understand we can read all the three properties, but we cannot modify ID because there is no setter. Once the user object is created, you can only update name and phone number. But if I want to print the value, I cannot access any property directly. We should read the value and we should print. So to read the value, you can use getter. Let me write u1.getId, then name equals u1.getName, and phone number equals u1.getPhoneNumber. And if I run the program, I should see ID, name, and phone number of the user object. Let me try to update name by using set name, but observe there is no set ID. You cannot update the ID. Set name, I will change that Alex to Alexander, and I will update even phone number also. And then we will print ID, name, and phone number. If I run the program, first it is printing ID, name, phone number like this, and later ID is same, but you can see an updated name and phone number. So what we need to understand from this program is when we hide these data, you cannot access them directly outside the class, but you can access through the methods. And also you can restrict which property should be updatable and which property should not be updatable. In our example, ID is just readable but not updatable. So that is it about the encapsulation. See you in the next video. Thank you so much.